Hello. So in this clip, I shall be talking about the recording process in specific and being evaluative about how it went. Um, so yes, the I think the first thing that came to me as the biggest shock was about the amount of times I'd have to retake things, and camera positioning is I had these ideas in my head for how I wanted the the scene to look. However, recording on my mobile phone and obviously not having being trained in filming or lighting or anything like that, I was kind of on my own, especially with the fact that both the people I live with, they're both key workers during the recording time. Obviously, the coronavirus is happening, so I was home alone quite a lot as well. So a lot of the time was consumed by sort of piling up books and finding the right camera angle and also finding the right time of day to do it. For example, a challenge I faced was that my dad works night shifts, who I live with, so I couldn't film too early in the day when the best lighting when there was the best lighting because he was asleep, and then I had a space between when he was awake and having dinner to go into his work, when I could film, but then of course it would get too dark, and that's why for most of the scenes that you see, it's all the indoor scenes that I filmed, they were actually recorded about 1-2 in the morning, when my mum was in bed, and that's why all the curtains are closed and it's really dark, which I think does help with the aesthetic of the piece, and in some of the slower moments the darkness kind of helps push that sort of atmosphere, but then in the montages, that's when I was home alone, that's when it's a bit lighter, and that's when the more funny moments come in. I think that really worked. So I think the filming did the timing of it, the schedule that I'd put together that you can see, was a bit, it was off schedule, and I had to kind of work what I got, and when I was writing up the schedule, I didn't consider my dad's shifts, or I didn't consider lighting and time of day and things like that, just because I was unaware of it. So moving forward to any projects like this as an actor, where if I ever do get put into a job where I have to consider them things, at least I'll have that knowledge. I think with some of the things I spoke about in some of my logs, and especially with Dowie, is I didn't realise how much I would refilm things, and I think that the big difference I saw between theatre acting and acting on stage, which is what I want to go into, and definitely what I've obviously been training in, because all of our performance training has been for stage. It's not, I haven't been on a film and TV course, so the difference is between how much you pick up on it and how much you or at least I use the audience, and I kind of gauge atmosphere of the audience, and you really don't realise, like in my previous works, for example with Pericles, in the opening scene, towards the end of the opening scene, I had a monologue in which he's very isolated on stage, and there was the one spotlight on me, and I in my coursework for that, I spoke a lot about the atmosphere that I wanted to build, and that I was and I was very unaware of it. The fact that I was saying I built this atmosphere, I did that, but it was actually, most of it was the audience, and having sort of been in traverse and having one spotlight on you and the rest of it in darkness. That whole atmosphere was built by all the eyes being on me, and by the circles of attention being so small. With a camera, you don't get that. I can't really manipulate the audience's atmosphere, because the audience could be watching it at 1 in the afternoon in their back garden, or they could be watching it at 3 in the morning in the dark, and so that's always going to have an impact. And I'm a strong believer in lighting, in the way that lighting can affect a scene, and yeah, I think just naturally one of the biggest things that humans. I know I'm kind of going off on a bit, but obviously the darkness represents the unknown and things like that, and that's why we have expressions like "I'll bring light to it" or whatever. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Sorry, but yeah, when I was so confident that I could create certain atmospheres, and you see that in my earlier coursework before I got to filming it, and before the coronavirus hit, I was talking about all these atmospheres I wanted to build, but it's not as easy as I thought it would be with filming. So that was that one. I think the other thing that probably affected me the most was rewatching and the ability. It's a good and a bad thing. The ability to kind of keep watching my performance back. I feel like when I was less in character for this piece, I can appreciate that, because I would film something, and for the first few times I'm filming it, I think I'd be fairly in character and it would work. Then I'd watch it back, and then as I'd pick up on things and be like, all right, that needs changing, which is good. I could identify that. As I was performing it again, that's what was running through my mind instead of being the character and allowing it to happen naturally. So it got to the point where I was doing 20 takes of the same scene, and towards the end it just didn't feel natural at all, and it lost all purpose. So I've definitely kind of learned to appreciate the art of being on stage and having an audience and only having that one opportunity. And in terms of Claire Dowie as well, I think because she is so tongue-in-cheek, and because Claire Dowie's style is so stand-up like, and if you look at her works and comedy in general, it's so subjective, and the reason why it works so well is because you have a massive audience, or not even a massive audience, because you have a audience. You have that connection. You're in the same room together, whether you're acting or not. You as human beings are in the same room together, and you're taking part in the same thing. You're taking part in theatre. They're watching it, and you're performing it. When it's just you and your camera, you're on your own, and you don't have that audience to connect with. So I felt like I kind of lost that comedic element there and lost that connection, which could have made it 10 times less funny. I'm not sure, but that's for the audience to anticipate. I think I worked well with the camera though. I think in terms of my prior knowledge of production, I think I did do a fairly decent job in the editing, and I think I did do a fairly decent job in filming. And I, as you can see on the YouTube channel, in the rehearsal videos, I just put them into time lapse and just watched them back and back, and just to make sure everything looks alright. And I think by choosing to have the natural look of it, and by choosing to have the character know he's being filmed and having it very meta, that allowed me to be much more free with it, and a lot more honest with it, and a bit meta, a bit like Claire Dowie is. It's very self-aware. I could do that because of he was aware that he was filming himself, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's the recording process, and how the kind of troubles and my evaluation of the process in general.